Welcome to the Warrior Wood Shop. My name is Mr. Rodaway, and on this video we're going to talk about frame and panel cabinet door construction. Then you can figure out why it's called a frame and panel, because you have a basically door frame with a center panel. Your center panel can be solid wood, or in this case lumber core furniture grade plywood. It's only a 1/4 inch, so we consider this a recessed or a flat panel. Again, terminology, name is based on what you grew up with, and sometimes regional. You can also do raised panel doors, which is this one from a kitchen cabinet out of an RV, or we did this blanket chest using the same style of frame and panel construction. The reason this works is the fact that the bits fit together like a puzzle. You've seen tongue groove in hardwood flooring, where the tongue inserts into the groove, gives you a lot of glue surface and a little expansion factor, but the joints are rectangular or butt joints. The difference here is we call this cope and stick, because in construction, when we cope something to match another, it's basically making the mirror image of it. And since we have a profile here, the top half of this piece actually puzzle matches the insides. To do that, you need to have a special set of router bits. You can do this with a table saw without the profile, so you can make a tongue and groove, but the cope and stick, you're kind of limited to router bits. That's where these first 2 router bits come in, and I recommend 2 router tables. It is possible to do it with 1, but it's a lot easier to set one up on 2 separate router tables and good to go. But these 2 bits are mirror images of each other. So that way it creates that puzzle fitting joinery. Why is that puzzle fitting joinery so important? Because it adds a lot of glue surface. You got a 3/4 inch thick door frame here. There's 1 1/4 inch to almost 1.5 inches of interlocking face-to-face, top and bottom glue surface. That's what gives it its strength. In fact, you're not limited to doors. We built this blanket chest 20 years ago using the same bits. Frame and panel construction, there is not a single fastener on the construction of this blanket chest. The only fasteners were where the hinge went, and we have to repair the lid. That's why it's off here. So there are a couple more bits in the set you can get. You actually can buy just a set of, they call it the cope and stick bits. This one came with a couple other bits. This one's called the panel raiser. That is what provides the shape when you're using solid wood. This piece right here that's attached to it is what's called the back cutter. You're not limited to 1/4 inch plywood or solid wood. We went ahead and put a diamond tread in this one, our toy hauler project where that came out of. We used a little wood backer and held it in with picture frame clamps or clips, so that way we've got it there. The last bit in the set, again, some sets come with this, some don't, is what's called the profile, or the door profile bit. What it does is, this one doesn't have it, the camper one, neither does my door. It's just got a simple round over right here. Everything is straight and square. Same thing here, I used a 1/8 inch cove, 1/4 inch cove maybe, and everything is square there. Where this project, we were mimicking some cabinets that already existed. They used the profile bit, so it still gives you that profile on the outside, but has a maybe 10-degree back cut right here, so you can actually grab, and there's something to get a hold of to open the doors without actually having handles on your cabinet. Why do you want no handles? Contemporary or budget issues. That's a matter of personal preference. The last thing you got to decide on is your hinge. The door's got to open somehow. This one here, we used the kind of more higher end one. It's a concealed with a soft close. In the toy hauler, it's not a soft close. You can hear it snapping, but it is concealed. What concealed means is when the door's closed, you don't see any of the hinge. Some people call these European hinges, because that's kind of where they got their start, was over across the pond. So we got one more that we had to build 2 of these cabinets. We still got another door to build. So we're gonna get this workbench cleared off and show you the process of us building this. We begin by rough cutting our stocks to length. We're gonna send them through the planer to get them all equal thickness. And then we'll head over to the joiner to straighten one edge. Finally, table saw them to width according to your calculations. Remember to batch cut, so that way you get identical widths when necessary. And most of the time, this is all 4 pieces. Now that everything's cut to size, we're going to do a little ring around the rosy, position the pieces good side down
So that way we can mark out our tongues and grooves. Tongues get marked on the sides that are going to have end grain intersecting the edge grain. You'll see here in a minute when it comes to the sanding phase while we're marking on the back. All 4 edges on a typical door will get a groove. So the tongues get marked on the rails. All 4 sides of a door get the groove, so stiles and rails. Finally, one more thing we like to do is basically mark them so they go back in the same order or orientation, and you didn't waste that time playing Ring Around the Rosie, because when you have multiple doors, this will definitely come into play. All right, now we're over at our Panel Master 3 shaper. You may be using a router to do yours, but just like any routing operation, you're going to want to do the end grains first, so that's where you're going to have the tongues marked. And after you do the first side, make sure you rotate the board, not flip, so that way the face is always orientated the same direction. On the Panel Master, it is towards the operator. Once you get the 2 tongues cut on all the rail pieces, we're going to move over to our groove cutter. This one's in the center on the Panel Master. Again, pay attention to orientation, because if you mess this one up, you're starting that piece over. Cut a groove on all 4 pieces. All right, now that we're done with the shaper or router, depending on your shop situation, we're going to take this moment to dry fit our material, make sure everything is going together like it should. And at the same time, we're going to double check our calculations for the panel measurements. You need to measure from inside of the groove to inside of the groove. Since the dry fit went well and we were able to verify the size that we need, after cutting it to those measurements, if it's a flat panel, 1/4 inch plywood, you're good to go over to the assembly table. But in this cedar chest example, we needed to go to our shaper and make about 3 or 4 passes. Don't try to do it all in one pass with that big 4-inch cutter head. You're probably going to chip out your panel and potentially other safety issues. So safety first, safety always, especially when you're working with large router and shaper bits. All right, I know this seems redundant, but we're going to do one more dry fit now that our panel's cut. Because once you get glue in the mix, it's a little too late to go back and wish you hadn't. And this will give us a chance to orientate our clamps, make sure everything goes together. Because remember, once glue gets in the mix, you got about 3 to 5 minutes to get everything glued together. All right, since we took our time to measure carefully and make sure all the cuts were square, we have a green light to go for glue. We're going to apply the glue using an old paintbrush or like a glue acid brush that you use for soldering. And you only apply the glue in the tongues. The panel is actually what's referred to as a floating panel. This allows for expansion and contraction in the changing humidities of the season. Once you get everything glued together, make sure you got a wet rag, so that way you can clean up any glue squeeze out, because it's going to be difficult to sand off any dry glue on the front profile. You'll probably end up damaging the look. So definitely double check for stuff like that. The backside, don't be too concerned right now, because we can sand that off later since everything's flat, and that's where those letters are on the back, because again, it's easier to sand a flat surface without damaging. Make sure you take time to double check, make sure the glue up assembly is square and flat. This can be done using the old diagonal geometry method or with some tri-squares and framing squares.
This is where it paid off. Since all of our cuts were square, the door ends up square. I'm going to repeat this one more time for the other one, and we're waiting for the glue to dry.
Time for everybody's favorite, sanding. Remember why we put the labels on the back? Because the back of the door is flat. This allows us to get any excess glue sanded off from under the underside and get rid of all our labels so the door looks nice and good. While we're at it, go ahead and make sure you sand the front. Give everything a thorough 100, 150, 180, and a 220 final sanding before you send it off to the paint and finish room.
Well, that's going to about wrap up this video. I appreciate you watching. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button, because yeah, this video may have covered frame and panel construction, from raised panel cabinet doors to man cave, toy hauler, diamond tread panel doors, still frame and panel, to full-blown cabinetry and desk TV stands using the frame and panel method. We use the cope and stick method to connect the two. It could also be done with dowels, dominoes, pocket screws, How you make the frame and panel is up to the machines you have available. Speaking of the machines available, we're going to do a longer in-depth video because this was just meant to introduce what frame and panels was and kind of do a quick time lapse and explanation of how they go together. But we're going to do a longer video for our students on actually calculating the door sizes and things like that. That's dedicated to not explaining what it is, but how to build it using our Panel Master. And it could also be translated into a regular router. So if you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button and that bell notification because that helps out the channel. I mean, we are a high school woodworking program that are making these videos so the students can use them as assistants, but we hope others out there in the YouTube world can get something from our videos too. So thanks for watching. Again, subscribe, bell notification, leave a comment what you would build a frame and panel door, because again, it all helps the algorithm, right? Help our program so we can keep making videos for you. So when you're done calculating your door sizes and hitting that subscribe button, all I have to say is go out and make some sawdust.